Welcome back to The Explainer. If you're a heavy Claude user, you're going to want to pay very close attention to this one, because as of today, July 20th, 2026, Anthropic just fundamentally changed what your subscription actually gets you. If you rely on their top-tier model, Fable 5, well, Claude just split your plan in two. Now, if you happen to be on the Pro plan, Anthropic has literally just dropped a one-time $100 credit right into your account. Sounds awesome, right? But before you go celebrating, we really need to look at the math behind this. Why? Because a single heavy work session can completely burn through that entire credit. So, I've gone ahead and dug through the announcement, the pricing docs, and all the fine print so you don't end up wasting it.
Honestly, I've got to ask you directly. Do you think your one-time $100 Claude credit will actually last the week? For those of you doing serious autonomous work, let me tell you, the answer is probably a hard no. Today, we're going to break down exactly what changed, look at the rather harsh reality of per-token billing, and crucially, I'll show you an open-source tool that can stretch whatever credit you have left by up to 70%.
Okay, let's dive right into the mechanics of this big plan split and see how the Pro and Max tiers stack up now. So let's look at exactly what Anthropic changed today regarding Fable 5, because honestly, this split is not subtle at all. Starting right now, your reality tracks one of two very different paths. Over on the left, if you're on the Max or Team Premium tier, you do keep Fable 5 permanently. But there's a pretty massive catch here. Your access is now capped at 50% of your standard weekly usage limits. And here's the part a lot of people are completely missing. Those standard limits are actually shrinking by roughly a third today anyway. That's because that promotional 50% boost to Claude code rate limits just expired. So you're not getting half of what you had yesterday, it's half of an already much smaller number. Now, glance over to the right. If you're on Pro or Team Standard, you completely lose Fable 5 as a bundled feature. Poof, gone. Instead, you get that $100 one-time credit, but once it's gone, you are billed directly at API rates. And let me tell you, those API rates are absolutely no joke. Once you burn through that initial credit, you're slammed with $10 per million input tokens and a staggering $50 per million output tokens. Just to put that into perspective for you, that is the steepest per token pricing of any Claude model currently available to the public.
So how in the world did we get here? Let's take a quick look at why Anthropic flinched and how messy this rollout actually was.
This was definitely not a clean, confident launch. In fact, it's been a highly reactive pivot after what felt like weeks of total indecision. Originally, Anthropic was just going to pull Fable 5 out of subscriptions completely. But then, on July 7th, they extended free access. Then came the user backlash, so they extended it again on the 12th. Then a third time to July 19th. And now, today, July 20th, marks the fourth deadline, and they are finally calling this structure permanent. It has been a wildly chaotic 5 weeks of updates, to say the least.
Which obviously leads us to wonder why the sudden reversal? Going from cutting the model entirely to this frantic, delayed splitting of the plans. Like, what actually caused Anthropic to panic and pivot so hard? Well, the answer really just boils down to a massive, perfectly timed competitive threat.
And this chart right here brilliantly illustrates exactly what Anthropic was staring down. On July 9th, OpenAI launched Solid GPT 5.6 Sol into general availability. Just look at that stark price difference. Sol is charging $30 per million output tokens. Compare that to Fable 5's $50. And on the input side, Sol is just $5 per million, which is literally half the cost of Fable 5's input. But the real kicker here is capability versus cost. On the Independent Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, which, remember, Anthropic doesn't control at all, Sol scores a 58.9, while Fable 5 is sitting right at 59.9. For all intents and purposes, that's a statistical tie for general capability. But here is the absolute killer metric. Artificial analysis found that Sol completes equivalent tasks at roughly one-third the real-world cost of Fable 5. Why is that? Because Sol just emits far fewer output tokens to get to the exact same answer. If Anthropic didn't include their best model in their high-tier subscriptions, there would practically be zero business reason to choose Claude over a cheaper, equally capable rival. That is exactly why they flinched. All right, now that we know the backstory, let's do the actual token math here and see what this means for your $100 credit. It is time to look at the numbers Anthropic probably doesn't want you focusing on when you see that shiny new credit. Keep this number in your head, $50. That is the massive cost just to generate 1 million output tokens on Fable 5 under these new API rates for pro users.
So let's drop the hammer on what this actually means. It takes exactly 2 million output tokens to completely drain that entire $100 one-time credit. Now, 2 million output tokens might sound like a mountain of text, right? But let's contextualize what that looks like in practice. 2 million tokens is just one serious, heavy autonomous coding migration, or maybe one deep, iterative document analysis run. Remember, Fable 5 has a 1 million token context window and pushes up to 128,000 tokens per response. It was literally built for these giant agentic workloads. So yeah, your entire credit could very realistically vanish in a single day of serious work.
Because of this reality, we need an actionable decision framework right now. Take a look at the current pricing landscape. If you're a pro user who just needs occasional reasoning for lighter tasks, honestly, you should pivot to Sonnet 5 immediately. Notice its introductory pricing through August 31st. It's just $2 for input and $10 for output. Pretty great deal. But if your weekly workload is heavy, it's predictable, and you absolutely require that massive context window, you should strongly consider just upgrading to the max plan before you start burning your credit on API rates. Predictable limits, even if they are shrunken, are almost always going to be $50 per million output fees.
But what if you absolutely have to use Fable 5? Well, let's talk about a secret 70% discount that can really stretch your credit.
Seriously, regardless of what tier you just landed on, there is a genuinely actionable open source workaround out there. It was published earlier this month by developer Stephen Chong, and it is a total game changer. Just look at these documented real-world savings. A standard Fable 5 session that normally runs about $42.21, he dropped it down to just $6.06 using a tool called PXPipe. Guys, that's up to a 70% reduction in cost.
So how does this brilliant tool actually work? It's a pretty clever workaround. Basically, both Anthropic and OpenAI price their image inputs based on physical pixel dimensions, not by the amount of text visible inside the image. Plain text, meanwhile, costs roughly 1 token per character. What PixPipe does is run locally and intercept your bulky static text. Things like massive system prompts, tool documentation, or old chat history. It takes all that and renders it into a really dense, compressed PNG image. Anthropic then bills you for the much cheaper pixel size of that image, completely bypassing those expensive text token counts. Your active recent messages, they still pass through as normal text, but the heavy lifting is completely discounted.
Now, as amazing as that sounds, let's talk about the honest limits. It's time to read the fine print.
Before you rush out to completely overhaul your workflow or panic about these competitive benchmarks, we really need to cover some crucial caveats here. First up, while Sol did tie Fable 5 on the general AI index, Fable 5 still holds a very real lead specifically in repository-level software engineering tasks. That being said, Anthropic's 80.3% score on SWE Bench, yeah, that's self-reported and currently unverified by any third parties, so take it with a slight grain of salt. Next, be really careful if you start using PixPipe. The compression is lossy. That means if you need exact character precision, like for hashes or specific IDs, the model might misread them. Plus, while it works great on Fable 5 and GPT-0.6, older models like Opus 4.7 and 4.8 actually misread the PNGs about 7% of the time. Finally, Anthropic hasn't given a totally firm timeline for exactly when this $100 credit is going to hit all accounts, and they certainly haven't promised that Fable 5 will ever return to the pro tier. So here's your core takeaway from this whole explainer. Do not let today's subscription change catch you completely off guard mid-project. You need to audit your usage right now. If you just got that $100 credit, please do not blindly burn your budget on a massive agentic session without doing the math first. Look at Sonnet 5, look at upgrading to Max, and definitely look at setting up PixPipe.
Which brings me right back to you. I really want to know how this is hitting your actual daily workflow. Are you currently on Pro or Max? And what are you planning to do with your Fable 5 access starting today? Are you jumping ship over to Sol? Are you upgrading, or are you just going to ride out that credit? Rethink your toolkit today and make sure you subscribe so you never get caught off guard by the fine print of these massive AI platform shifts. Thanks so much for hanging out, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.